What's up, everyone? Merry almost Christmas. Just another little present for everyone doing the Showdown show. We haven't had one of these in a while. It's been a busy season, but I found some time. Baby sleeping right now, so I'm jumping on for a show just to give my thoughts a little bit here on what we have. I was looking at these lineups, and it's going to be a lot easier to do the show once lineups come out because we don't know about some of these players. Brighton always seem to rotate as well, but unfortunately, again, baby sleeping, so I got to do the show at the moment while that's happening. So let's dive into it here. RotoWire.com/soccer trial, 48-hour trial to get stuff at RotoWire. You're going to want all that over the holiday season. We're going to have cheat sheets for all of these slates at DraftKings, at FanDuel, at Fantasy Premier League, FPL. Here we go. We got Brighton are an away favorite. Crystal Palace are at home, 20, almost 30% to win. Brighton are hovering around 42%. 1.5 implied goal total for Brighton, 1.23 for Crystal Palace. And as you can see here, both teams below 30% in clean sheet odds. And the thing, I was pulling up the exact numbers here before the show. So Brighton, they just lost 2-0 at Arsenal. It basically stopped a 32 straight game run in which they've scored in the Premier League, and then a 20 straight run, 20 straight games in which both teams scored in their matches. So that means Brighton haven't had a clean sheet in 20, I guess it's now 21 straight matches at least, dating back to last season since they've had a clean sheet. So I found that one interesting. De Zerbi getting a lot of praise, but, the clean sheets just aren't happening. I actually wrote up a bet in this game, actually. Check that out. Go to the sports betting page, go to the soccer page, and my betting article is up. So check that out if you're into betting. But I talked about this game in there. So Crystal Palace are at home. And for lineup purposes, we have some questions here. So Eberechi easy. I'll click into his profile. I'll be nice in this show. I'll click into his profile, though. This is not free. You got to be subscribed to get in here. So he played 1 minute. He kind of came back a little earlier than everyone thought. Roy Hodgson basically was talking the last 2 weeks. It was like, yeah, he's not really close. As he's not really close, he wants to come back. He wants to play, but he's not exactly close. The medics, the physios aren't telling me that he's ready to play. Turns out he was on the bench against Manchester City. He played the final few minutes of that game. We're 5 days later. Is Eze ready to start? That's going to be probably the main question here. If he starts, I'm going to say we're looking at 60, 70 minutes. Reminder for a lot of these teams, Crystal Palace and Brighton may be in the best situation where they're going to have 3 games in roughly 10 or so days. I'd have to double check that. But a lot of these teams have 3 games in 7 days, 3 games in 8 days. So somewhat of a benefit there. But just a reminder for, Elise returning from his injury, Eze returning from his injury, we're not going to see full 90s for players that you normally used to seeing full 90s from. Maybe not in this first game because there's a small break. Again, five days since their last game. I don't know how much of a break you could say that is, but it is more of a break than some of these other teams will be getting once we get to the Boxing Day and all that, all the other good stuff. So Decore is still out. Roy Hodgson said Lerma is close to coming back. I doubt he's going to be ready to start. I think he had a hamstring problem, so I don't think he's going to be starting this one. We haven't really had an update on Will Hughes. He was a surprise absence against Manchester City. I haven't really heard anything about it. He could be starting in this one. So it could be Will Hughes. It could be Richards would probably start. He's been in there consistently. As you can see, I have a 4-3-3. They went really defensive in the last game. Then Joel Ward picked up an injury, and he's out for, I think, up to a month now. So we got Nathaniel Klein playing at right back. Tyreek Mitchell's back from his injury. So Elise will probably be ready to start. Mateta is going to be in there for Edouard. Edouard's still out. Jordan Ayew's back from his suspension. So a little better lineup than what they had against Manchester City, especially if Eze starts here. But also if Will Hughes starts. He would be starting over Gyro Riedewald starting against Manchester City. So Ayew back in there allows Schlupp to play more defensive, which I think is probably better role there. So there are questions of how they're actually going to line up. Again, rotowire.com/soccer trial. Once you're subscribed, just get into our Discord. All that discussion will be going on. rotowire.com/chat. But, they could line up like this. Will Hughes, I'd say maybe Will Hughes instead of Eze kind of thing. If Eze isn't ready to start, which probably you don't want to start Eze right now, but I have him in just because arguably their best player, maybe their most important player. And if he's ready, if he's close to being ready, throw him in for 60, 70 minutes and have him go at it kind of a thing. Brighton, Joel Veltman is out for months, I believe. So we do have questions for Brighton as well. A lot of lineup talk here, but I think that's kind of important while we're looking at the slate. Hinshelwood should be back in there because of the Veltman injury. I think he came off the bench last game. Van Heck and Dunk are preferred to Igor. I got James Milner in at right back. We could see a situation where Pascal Gross moves to fullback. And again, I kind of always say this for these Brighton slates. I don't really care in terms of DFS. I don't really care where Pascal Gross lines up because, especially in a game like this where you figure Brighton's probably going to have 60, 65, depending how the game goes, almost 70% possession. It doesn't really matter if Pascal Gross is a defensive midfielder or a fullback kind of a thing. So, if Milner doesn't start, which I think is a possibility, I don't know how long he went in this last match. Yeah, he went 60 minutes in this last match. That's kind of all he's going. So that was 17th. So I guess that was 4 days ago as well. So we could see a situation where next to Gilmore, it's Dahoud, it's Baleba kind of thing, and then Gross is a fullback with Hinshelwood. So some questions there, and then we have Brighton questions. Adam Lallana has been starting pretty much every league match for at least the last month, but he only goes 45 minutes in all these games. Adingra basically starts every game. I think Evan Ferguson's going to be fine. I put João Pedro in for Adam Lallana, but anything can happen. João Pedro hasn't really. I don't know the situation with De Zerbi, but João Pedro, it feels like he should be getting more minutes, but he just isn't getting a ton of starts. I think Miedema is good for a start here. On the left wing, though, Buonanotte is also an option. De Zerbi, probably one of the hardest managers to project in terms of lineups every game. But again, you're going to want to go to our Discord if you have any questions about anything. As we saw, I guess as we get into DFS a little bit here, as we saw a couple weeks ago, it wasn't this most recent game because I don't think Brighton actually touched the ball even. I guess they had a few passes, but I don't think they had any corners last game against Arsenal. Okay, maybe Pascal Gross had one corner against them. But this was, I guess it was a while ago when Billy Gilmore was taking corners from Pascal Gross. And then we see that game against Marseille, in which there wasn't a ton of set pieces. We saw the game against Burnley. Let me just double check here. Yeah, I mean, even Pascal Gross or Billy Gilmore came off the bench, played the final 45, and still Pascal Gross took every set piece in that game. So we do have a question of, is it going to be a split of set pieces? Is Billy Gilmore going to take set pieces from Pascal Gross, or is it just going to be Gross? Like usual, is it going to be Gross taking all the set pieces? That's the question there. In terms of Crystal Palace, I think I would equate this to a little bit to last season where Michael Elise was taking pretty much the majority of set pieces. Maybe Eze was taking a free kick or two kind of thing, but a lot of Eze's fantasy value was basically, it wasn't even attached to set pieces. It was attached to getting goals, getting shots. I just pulled up, here's the game logs from the end of last season. Getting a ton of shots here, getting a ton of shots on target, creating chances for his teammates, even without set pieces. As you can see, not a ton of set pieces. Just over 10 set pieces for his final 10 or so starts or whatever. So that's kind of what you're looking here from Eze. So if you play Eze, you're looking for the goal is kind of what I'm getting at, because if he's only going 60, 70 minutes off his injury, and then they have another game in a few days, he's not going to be going 90 minutes in this one. So if you play Eze, you kind of you're kind of playing for the goal. You're kind of playing for the assist kind of a thing. So that's the one thing I'll say with Eze. So in cash games, so we get into some DraftKings DFS talk here. So in cash games, I think it's pretty reasonable. You just captain Gross, and then you plug in Elise. You basically have the set pieces there. You can put Gilmore in this lineup as well, just in case something, I don't know if I want to say stupid, something happens where, okay, Gilmore is now splitting set pieces again, kind of a thing. So because of the way Crystal Palace played, the only way that it's not going to happen where Brighton are just going to have 70% possession and get more corners kind of thing is if Brighton actually score first. And then Crystal Palace are the ones that need to push a little bit. as the game goes on, kind of a thing. But I think it's pretty reasonable. Gross captain, Olise in there, plug in Gilmore, and then you kind of find the other pieces, whatever else fits. I think you can fit a lot because do you want to play Eze in cash games? I don't think Eze needs to be playing cash games. 9,200. João Pedro is a little more expensive, 9,400. You can go through Pedro's game logs. There's 90s here and there, but really, I think he's only gone 90 in one league game this season, gone close to 90 in a couple more. So again, with so many games happening, De Zerbi isn't afraid to rotate, isn't afraid to sub people out. He's going to use all 5 of his subs, I think. Probably the same can't be said about Roy Hodgson because his bench isn't as deep, though he has young guys like David Ozo and Franca coming off the bench. Those guys will get minutes, but I'm not sure it's going to be as relevant as some of these Brighton guys because De Zerbi doesn't care about rotating guys, subbing guys out at 45, at 60 minutes. He does that pretty frequently. So what else do you want for cash games? I think because Adingra, maybe most likely of a lot of these guys go 90, you could plug him into cash games. Miedema is in this range as well. He doesn't have as high of a floor. Most of his points are kind of attached to goals or assists. I wouldn't say the floors for Adingra and Miedema aren't great. I would say Adingra's is probably better. I guess we could use the cheat sheet here and see what the numbers actually tell us. So let's find Miedema and Adingra. Okay, so actually Miedema has a slightly better floor per 90. Not a ton, about 0.5 points per 90, a little more. So I guess you can look at it like that. This isn't really a fullback slate. Mitchell, Klein, not really into that. Milner's minutes aren't guaranteed here. So do you want to play 60 minutes of Milner as a fullback? Probably not. I actually kind of like Hinshelwood. My first lineup I built, I captained Hinshelwood, and that allowed me to play pretty much a lot of these other players. You're kind of worried about the minutes for Hinshelwood, which is reasonable, but I think you add that Veltman injury in there with Estupinian being hurt and Lamptey being hurt. I think there's a slight chance we could see more minutes for Hinshelwood. The one comparison De Zerbi has made, I don't know when it was recently, past 1 or 2 weeks, he's compared Hinshelwood to Pascal Gross. So that's going to be one thing I'm looking for maybe in the second half of the season. Still, he's a young player who doesn't have a ton of Premier League minutes. That's why he's not getting 90s, but I think eventually the minutes will come for Hinshelwood. Maybe not cash worthy, 4K though. He fits pretty easily into your lineup. As always with Crystal Palace, Mark Gahey and Joachim Anderson are always in play. Even Van Heck and Lewis Dunk, if you're looking for some shots from set pieces kind of thing. I guess Jacob Moder might be an option to start as well. This guy, he's been out for, I don't know, a year and a half with a knee injury. All right, who else do we want in cash games? Do we want Jordan Ayew in cash games? Maybe. He's probably more of anyone in this game because he was suspended last game, and he has a pretty good floor. The question is that matter against a team like Brighton who like to possess? I think it kind of does matter because I don't think Brighton are guaranteed to possess the ball a ton because of injuries, because of rotation. We'll see what their lineup looks like. But I mean, we look at Ayew, and his floor is up there. Basically, João Pedro's floor is a lot of shots, shots on goal. That's what his floor is. Ayew's floor is a little more attached to drawing fouls, just being a nuisance, really. Ayew actually draws, look at this. It's kind of surprising here. Ayew actually draws about as many fouls as Olise and more fouls than Eze. So I think that's pretty interesting there, especially against a younger team and maybe inconsistent team like Brighton. So I think Ayew is in play for cash games. Let's just try plugging in Ayew and, I don't know, for the sake of it, Adingra for cash games. And then, okay, you got 4,400 left. You can use Gahey. You can use Mitchell. You can use Hinshelwood. You can use any of these guys, really. Would I play Will Hughes? Where's Will Hughes? Will Hughes is 3K. Will Hughes is 3K now. He held value when he was actually taking set pieces. So if he starts, he's not going to be taking set pieces with Olise and Eze back in there. So he's kind of out of range for me, and he's always in play for a yellow card. So people will look at the 3K and maybe look at some of his average and play him because of that, but I'm not playing that kind of route. All right, so I'm doing this show mainly because we noticed there's a King of the Pitch contest going on. So how are we going to win some tournaments? I think you win tournaments by playing one of these goalkeepers. Maybe playing Henderson, maybe playing for the winning clean sheet from Crystal Palace. I mentioned the numbers at the top of the show. 32 straight games in which, prior to the Arsenal game, there's 32 straight games. Brighton had scored in 32 straight league games. Do you want to play? Do you want to play for back-to-back scoreless games for Brighton? Probably not, but that's kind of how you win tournaments. Not many people are going to go with Henderson. And as I said, I don't know when the last time Brighton actually had a league clean sheet. They have a couple in Europa League, but I don't know the last time they had a league clean sheet. So how many people are going to be captain in Jason Steele or Verbruggen kind of thing? If you want to do that, maybe you can win a King of the Pitch ticket with it. I'm undecided if I'm going to do that. I usually, the times when my favorite strategy is captaining goalkeepers, and it's usually turns a pretty big positive for me. And the times when I don't do that, because I think there's going to be goals, is when there is a clean sheet, when one of these goalkeepers surprisingly gets a clean sheet kind of thing. And that's when I kick myself. So I may, do a little thinking back a little bit here. Maybe I might end up, we'll see how many times I talk myself out of it kind of a thing. I might end up with Dean Henderson captain. Maybe for the sake of this conversation with myself here, maybe I'll do that for fun. But as I said earlier, I did have, if you captain someone like Hinchwood or a cheaper player, one of those center backs kind of thing, maybe you get a few shots from the center back, maybe you get some tackles won kind of thing, or maybe you get a goal from your center back. Getting one of those cheaper guys is going to allow you to play. Is going to allow you to play Gross. Going to allow you to play Olise, Eze. If you want to go full Crystal Palace, you can plug IU in there. I haven't even mentioned Mateta really yet, or Ferguson. Let's click into Mateta here. I assume he went 90 last game because he got that late goal against Manchester City, maybe 70th minute or so. So without Edward in there, it looks like Mateta is going to be the guy for 90 minutes. So that's another thing to look at. So there's a lot of ways you can go. If you don't, let's just kind of try and build this out. Let's try and build Mateta out. So let's just say there's goals. Let's say both teams score. Let's forget about goalkeepers. And let's captain Mateta. So you're probably going to want Olise with this. We got Mateta. We'll get the Olise assist and whatever else he does. We're going to get the run back with Pascal Gross corners and set pieces. Maybe even go Billy Gilmore here at this lineup and see what else you can get. You can go Eze, but again, as I said earlier, if you play Eze, you're gonna want a goal or assist from his 60 or 70 minutes. Again, it's not guaranteed if he starts that he's going 60 or 70 minutes. That's just what I think is going to happen, because again, he's off this injury, played a few minutes against Manchester City. So many games coming up. I highly doubt that he's going to be going close to 90 minutes in this game if he starts, of course. Okay, so and then I guess you can decide, do you want someone like IU? Maybe you're thinking multiple goals, but I think if you play Eze in this, if you play IU in this lineup, maybe you are thinking multiple goals from Crystal Palace. So that's the one thing, because you're already captaining Mateta. How many goals are Crystal Palace going to get? So you got Mateta, you got Olise, you got Gross and Gilmore. You don't have to play Gilmore in this lineup, but what if maybe it's not like he has a terrible floor without set pieces, and a Brighton are going to have possession. So let's just get the Brighton goal here. Ferguson is pretty cheap. He hasn't been that great lately. Went 60 minutes against Arsenal. He does have 90 minutes in him. Went 90 minutes against Burnley, Chelsea. Just really hasn't scored lately, so I'm not sure how popular it's going to be. The goals really haven't been there since earlier in the season. Kind of almost since he had a hat trick earlier in the season. Looking at the goal odds. What am I missing here? Okay. I overlooked him. Ferguson's plus 200 to score. Mateta's plus 185 to score. Pedro, of note, does take PKs. I talked about his minutes earlier, but Pedro does take PKs for Brighton. That's the one thing that I'd keep in mind here. If you don't want to worry about minutes at all, I'd say of Brighton's top four attackers, I'll say who is most likely of this group to most likely go 90. Looks like Miedema's gone 90 last couple. He's coming off a minor injury as well. So if Lallana starts, I'll say 45 minutes for him. If Pedro starts, I'm going to say 70 for him. Adingra, 80 plus. Miedema, 80 plus. Ferguson, let's say Danny Welbeck is back, actually. So Ferguson is not guaranteed. either. So I'll say 70 for Ferguson. So that means Miedema and Adingra most likely of the attack to go 80 plus minutes. I'll just say both are, I'll just say they're both pretty even in terms of minutes. So if you want to play the minutes route and you want the late goal for Miedema or a Dinger kind of thing, play one of those guys in that lineup, and you still got a decent amount of money if you play Gilmore kind of thing, or if you play one of these center backs, if you play Hinchelwood. There's a lot of room to go. Not going to play Schlupp, but as I said, there's a few options here. Again, maybe you don't want to worry about minutes from Hinchelwood. Maybe you don't want to worry about minutes for any of these Brighton guys. Maybe you just go. Again, the depth on Crystal Palace is pretty weak. We just got the injury to Joe Ward, so Nathaniel Klein's going to be here for 90. Mitchell, he's back from injury, but he's probably going to be ready for 90 because they just don't have really anyone else. And then the center back's more likely to go 90 as well. So that's all I got for this one. That is all I got. Good luck in King of the Pitch. I got to decide if I'm going to run out a Hendo captain to win this ticket or not, and then I got to build that out. People want me to build out my Hendo captain, and no, I've already talked 20 minutes here. You don't need to listen to my Hendo captain lineup. You can figure it out for yourselves. But thank you for watching this. Follow RotoWire Soccer on Twitter at RotoWire Soccer. Please give a thumbs up to this video. Please subscribe to RotoWire RotoWire YouTube here. Subscribe to this channel. We're going to have DFS videos out. We got the usual DFS video coming out both Fridays. I don't think we're going to have another video for Boxing Day, unfortunately, just because the turnaround is kind of crazy. So we have 24th is a Sunday. We're just not going to do a video on Sunday, Christmas Eve, and then we're not going to do a video on Christmas. So apologies to that one. We'll see if anyone wants to write an article about Boxing Day. I think Jack Burkhardt said he'd consider an article. We'll see how that turns out. But in terms of videos, we'll cover the Saturday slates as usual. We'll have those DFS videos. We'll have betting videos as well. We'll have plenty of content, written content as well up at the site, rotowire.com/soccer trial, 48-hour trial. Once you're in rotowire.com/chat to get into our Discord where people will be talking, because we still got, I think we still got La Liga games going on today. That's closing up until their winter break. And then we got another showdown tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be back or not for a showdown. We'll see what those contests look like, but we will have our usual Saturday show as well. So thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Find me on Twitter at Zdroik or RotoWire Soccer. Hope everyone has a good holiday, and we'll see everyone at some point in the next 10 days.